Welcome to DBC. Today we're continuing with nonviolent communication, and we have two more chapters to cover. The first of which is about connecting compassionately with ourselves, and the second one is about anger. What do we do from a nonviolent communication perspective with respect to anger, which can be a very powerful emotion in ourselves and in others, and there's a lot of really cool stuff on that. Before we hop into anger, let's talk about connecting compassionately with ourselves. And Rosenberg here gives us two definitions that I'd like to cover, and then he talks about the importance of play and another word for being aware of the words that we use and how we can make a small change to have a big impact on our life. So the words that we want to talk about, and talks about connecting with ourselves, are mourning and self-forgiveness. So mourning in nonviolent communication is connecting with the feelings and unmet needs stimulated by past actions that we regret. So we have this memory into the past, something we regret, and it's like, okay, well, what were the unmet needs and feeling, or what were the feelings and unmet needs that resulted in that experience for us? That's the mourning aspect. And then the self-forgiveness aspect in a nonviolent communication point of view is connecting with the need that we were trying to meet when we took the action that we now regret. So empathizing with ourselves, really, where the empathy last time was externally, and now being able to empathize internally. And a really cool, and this chapter Rosenberg mentions, he says, don't do anything that isn't play. And there's another grammar point here, and he says, translating have to choose to. So whenever you find yourself saying, I have to X or whatever, I choose to. And then even more than that, like, oh, I choose to do this because my mom will get me in trouble. No, I choose to blank. I choose to cut the grass because I want privileges to spend my free time in, or whatever the case may be. And be conscious of what needs your choices are serving in yourself. So I choose to because I want. And just finish the chapter. Rosenberg says that by assessing our behavior in terms of our own unmet needs, the impetus for change comes not out of shame, guilt, anger, or depression, which are all effective, he says, but ultimately not in the long run. What we come out of a genuine desire to contribute to our own others' well-being, which is the point here. And he says also, we cultivate self-compassion by consciously choosing to act only in service to our own needs and values, rather than that of some sort of duty, extrinsic rewards, or to avoid guilt, shame, or punishment. If we review the joyless acts to which we currently subject ourselves and make them translate from, I have to do this joyless act that doesn't serve me, to I choose to, then we'll discover more play and integrity in our lives. So ultimately, the responsibility is coming on ourselves. So it's like, well, if I'm choosing this, is this the choice that I want to make? Are these the needs and wants that I want to be fulfilled or not? And we can act accordingly. Okay, expressing anger fully, he says. Dealing with emotions in ourselves, again, the point from a few videos back is that we want to separate the stimulus of an emotion, which could be others or some external factor, something someone said or did to us. Separate that stimulus with the cause of anger, which is the internal process that happens after we receive that stimulus, because it doesn't have to always unfold the same way. And then there's a couple of cultural and larger political points that he makes here. Is that in a culture that uses guilt to motivate action, which ours is, it's helpful to conflate stimulate with cause. And so this is the idea here, sort of politically, I see it politically at least, is that so if we are tricked into believing that our pain is a result of somebody else, violence is what they deserve and to be punished for our negative feelings. And then the idea here is that any judgment diminishes the likelihood that our needs will be met. So if we're talking, any judgment going to them or coming to me diminishes the likelihood that our needs are actually going to be met. So it's ineffective, even though it might feel good in the moment there. And that anger is a result of life-alienating thinking. So this is, he doesn't use this word, but I think the term externalizing. So blaming other people. That's disconnected from our own needs, that process. And the cool thing is to use anger either in your own self or in someone you're dealing with. Use anger as an alarm clock to you that says, I have a need that isn't being met, or this person has a need that's not being met. And then we go back to this ownership of our feelings, and specifically with anger this time. So that I would say, instead of saying, I am angry because you, he, they, those people did this or are not doing that. I am angry because I need. So bring it back to our needs as a way to stay compassionate or nonviolent in our communications. So how do we express anger? Several steps here, but they're simple. So the first step is to stop and breathe. Say nothing, do nothing else. Stop and breathe first. Identify our judgments, judgmental thoughts, connect them with our needs. So this is nothing new. And then, so this is all internal, nothing's being said yet. First thing to do now is to offer empathy to whoever we are angry with. And if they judge back at you, listen for the feeling or need that is not being met or that is behind each one. So we stop, breathe, identify our judgmental thoughts, connect with our needs, empathize with the other person said. So this is a sort of a vulnerability and a lowering of guards. Empathize with them, express our feelings and unmet needs in those terms. I feel, in the way that we previously talked about how to do that appropriately. And then ask what they heard. And he gives several examples where he's talking with people and using this NVC language, perfectly. And he says, can you tell me what you heard? And people hear blame. And he's like, no, I want you to listen again and listen to my words and tell me what you actually hear. And if you just say your own emotions and unmet needs, they will realize internally that they are the ones that are placing the blame in your words if you're doing it right. Really cool. And then so one final thing to work on at the end of the chapter says that practice translating our own and other people's judgments, not as judgments, but as unmet needs. So what need is unmet that is causing this behavior? And use that as a way to move forward into a process. So thanks for watching, and we will continue next time.